Hey everybody, Danielle Hargenrader here, and welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Today, I am very excited to bring you another amazing guest. I'm going to read you her bio, and then we are going to jump right into her story. Amber Clour was born and raised in Norman, Oklahoma, and 21 days after her 8th birthday, she was rushed to Children's Hospital where she spent 2 weeks learning how to live life with type 1 diabetes. She now embraces the thought of being a walking science project and her efforts to maintain a stable blood glucose while living life to the fullest. In 2015, she stepped down as executive director for a community art space and gallery to pursue her drive to co-found the diabetesdailygrind.com and co-host the Real Life Diabetes podcast. Amber's no-filter approach to sharing her story gives an honest look into her daily life in hopes of letting others know they aren't alone on this T1D journey. On January 28th, 2016, Amber celebrated her 32nd diaversary. When diagnosed, she never thought she would reach this milestone with her eyesight and all of her toes. Her outlook on life is much different from the earlier doom and gloom years spent hating the world because of the disease. Even though life as a T1D is challenging, she attributes much of her success to dealing with the struggles head on. Amber lives life to the fullest and enjoys time with close friends and family, red wine, long walks, decorating magazines, and new cooking adventures. So Amber, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. How are you?
I'm wonderful. That kind of sounded like a dating profile at the end.
I thought that too. I'm like, I think I want to know more about Amber, or I enjoy some of those things too. I'm going to click on all the rest of your pictures.
I'm still available, people, so.
Awesome. So as we normally do here on the beginning of the show, we want to know about you and your story. So give us a little rundown on your diagnosis story, which we found was 21 days after your 8th birthday, and kind of the path that you've gone from then till now.
Well, according to my mom, she just noticed that I lost like 6 or 7 pounds, and I was already super thin as a kid, which is shocking considering what I look like today. But, and so she took me to my pediatrician, and they knew right off the bat that I had type 1. And it was either call an ambulance and rush me to the emergency room, or mama had to drive me there immediately. And so at that point, life changed dramatically. And I am really happy and thankful to be alive, and that I have lived life to the fullest, never really recognizing, I'm going to say that I had diabetes. I just never felt different from anyone else. I didn't talk about it. And I've only changed my insulin regimen once, kind of twice. But, you know, I'm on my 33rd year, and my A1C is great, and I live a great life. I'm very blessed.
Yeah, so give me a little background, because I like to talk about this as a common factor as I find patterns interviewing people. What was your diagnosis like from the medical standpoint? What did the doctors tell you? And your
Oh gosh, it was so long ago. I mean, you know, honestly, with no offense to them, because they were telling me what they thought I needed to know at that time. And all that I really took away from that was doom and gloom. And, you know, if you made it to your 20th anniversary, I don't know what they call it at that point, you were lucky. You were most likely going to be blind, and not have, you know, you might have an amputation, blah, 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 but good luck, and
I had a very similar experience, and I ask because now more and more I find that the people that hear things from their doctors and their medical team, like, you can live whatever life you want as long as you take care of your diabetes well, you'll be fine, you can do whatever you want. Or there's our camp where it's like doom and gloom, complications, good luck, and that kind of shapes your journey. But you didn't let that stop you from living the life that you wanted, even though you heard that news at that young age.
It's pretty crazy. And like I said, I never really thought about diabetes in my everyday life. I just gave my shots. I didn't test as a kid. I did every once in a while when somebody forced me to, but I'm here for a reason. There is no doubt.
Okay, so tell me more about that reason then. So you obviously, you were in the nonprofit space for a while, and then you transitioned out. So let's talk about and lead up to the Diabetes Daily Grind, which I want to learn more about.
Well, it's so funny because I used to say, especially whenever we kind of started the Diabetes Daily Grind, because I was in a great position as the executive director. I ran a huge art space and curated and did all these things. And I used to say, art is my passion, but diabetes is my life. This is kind of a hobby for me because, like I said, I never talked about it. So me essentially journaling, blogging, was a sense of therapy that I didn't even know I needed. And then through all of the DOC, and I mean, I have friends now from all over the world that understand what I'm going through. I never had anybody in my life that had the disease that I could chat with. So this has been a game changer.
Yes, and actually I'm glad you mentioned that. So talk a little bit, so you were journaling for your own well-being, which I think is a fantastic thing, and I recommend that people do all the time.
Right.
Where was the transition between, hey, I'm journaling here for myself so I can feel better and express my emotions and all that stuff, to, hey, I'm going to turn this into a blog and I'm going to now be actively involved in the diabetes community with people, peer-to-peer support, which you weren't necessarily having before, if I'm hearing your story correctly. Where was the transition, and what difference did that peer-to-peer support make in your life?
Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, because I was around so many creative people, I had talked to some friends who were publishers and kind of graphic artists about publishing a series of children's books about my experience through life growing up with diabetes. It was just a creative project I'd kind of tapped into, started a little pin board with ideas and some graphics, talked to an artist about sketching me as a kid and that, and then life got busy and things changed. And then I happened to be at a Leadership Norman alumni cocktail hour. And I met this woman who I overheard her say something along the lines of her son was going to go to medical school and he might study endocrinology. And so I chimed into the conversation and I just said, it's a very specific field. Why is that? And she said, well, he has type 1 diabetes. And I said, oh my gosh, so do I. And she said, well, I thought that's what your tattoo said. So right then it was like, da, 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 da. And she said, you've got to meet my son. And so she set up a happy hour, and Ryan Fightmaster and I met it and had a cocktail with his parents. And right off the bat, I mean, it was like we were, and I hate to say this, but throwing up on each other, all these things like, oh my gosh, have you ever done this? Have you ever, da, da, da. And so a friendship struck up, and then we decided from there in sharing our stories, and we knew that we had both lived very blessed lives. Let's start a blog. Let's start simple. And that little game plan, we had no idea that it would be to where it is today. So
well, I want to talk about more about where it is today, but you would say, just out of your own personal experience, that having that conversation with somebody else who had diabetes was maybe cathartic?
Oh, for
sure. That's a good way to describe it?
Yeah.
Okay. So no, I'm glad, just like to hear across the board, because there's not a single person that I've ever talked to, whether it's interview or just a client or anyone, that has not had that exact same experience. And I don't like to say, well, everybody's going to have the same experience, because of course people are different, but I haven't met a single person who hasn't had that experience when you get to just chat with somebody who understands your life. And it's just, you didn't even know it was missing until you realized that it was. So let's talk a little bit more about Diabetes Daily Grind. So you started a couple of years ago. What's the mission? What are you guys doing? Give me the rundown.
At that point, I mean, I really didn't know the DOC existed. We were just kind of doing this, like I said, for ourselves, and we're shocked when people started commenting. And the whole point of the thing was to provide real support for the diabetes life. No one tells you, gives you a pamphlet on how to go to prom, or to go to your first keg party, or to, well, I mean, have sex with a pump, I mean, whatever. And so we just wanted to write about things that we'd experienced that we weren't finding, you weren't getting in the endocrinologist's office. And we knew that we were going to kind of expose ourselves, but if our little mishaps or whatever help somebody else get through a time that, I mean, we want everybody to live a normal life. And so hopefully we're not scaring too many people with what we write about. And yeah.
I don't think anybody's scared of real life. And that's why I do these interviews. Like, I always tell you, there's no camera crew and nobody's doing my hair and makeup. Like, I'm literally sitting in my basement, like with a webcam and talking about real life stuff, because that's what people want to hear. It's great to get information from your endocrinologist about carb counting and things like that, but the lived experience, the day-to-day, the things that we go through, people want to know more about that because they're going through it too. It's the same thing. And I've talked about sex and diabetes all the time. Like, I'm huge on talking about that, just because there's a huge population of teenagers and 20 somethings that are like, even clients that I've had, they're hesitant even because they're embarrassed about having a pump site or a Dexcom or whatever it is. And it's a very, how do you explain that to somebody? And
Right.
it's a whole thing that people are engulfed with, but
Yeah.
nobody at the endocrinologist office is like, hey, how's your sex life? Like nobody, like nobody's talking about that.
Right.
It's important. So cool. So like, what's Diabetes Daily Grind up to now? What's the next project? What are you guys up to?
Well, we're hopefully going to update the site considerably because we have so much traffic now that it needs a serious update to stay up to speed, essentially. And then the Real Life Diabetes podcast, my God, I mean, that again was a game changer. I feel more confident talking to someone over writing, even though I'm getting over that little hiccup. But the people that we have down the pipeline, it's inspirational for me. Hearing these people talk about their lives. And so that's kind of what we're up to. And again, we're really working on staying afloat. I mean, this is something that we both took a huge risk. We're both entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of other things we could be doing that, professionally, that we could be making a lot more money, but this is where our heart and our passion is. And it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel you on the. I've been doing what I've been doing now for the better part of 7 years. Just coaching people with. I mean, when I became a health coach, certified health coach through ACE, I'm a certified personal trainer and I have a bachelor's degree in nutrition science. But being a diabetes coach,
yeah,
that wasn't a thing. Like there was, and now it's becoming more of a recognizable thing because there are certain things that you need, that a regular health coach that doesn't actually, again, have that lived experience coming from being obese and having an eating disorder to being healthy and happy. I've created a system, and I like it to be a repeatable system and getting that coaching. But I think that people don't always even need that. They could just listen to a podcast with you and Ryan, and they can say, oh my God, they're talking about something that I just experienced. I'm not the only one experiencing that. And it's a life-changing thing. So it's pretty amazing. But I want to know more about Amber. So let's talk about, so a lot of people, when I interview them, and also I get questions, people want to know how you manage your diabetes for you. And I always tell people diabetes management is an individual choice. We have choices.
Absolutely.
Many of us have choices, which is a blessing. It's very, we didn't even have insulin 100 years ago. So all the choices that we have, but what works best for you? Because you said, you maintain healthy A1Cs and things like that. So what's your diabetes story? And I know so Amber and I actually met for the first time ever a month ago at Masterlab and
thank goodness you were my partner in crime. You were,
so I should probably share the quick backstory. I won't, it's pretty gross, but Amber and I met at the pool in Orlando, and we'll just say that there was some nasty stuff going on at the pool that we bonded over. But I did find out that you choose not to use a pump, which is something I know tons of people that have great management do. What makes you choose what you choose, and how do you feel about it and all that kind of stuff?
Well, like I said earlier, I have only changed a handful of times, and so I started on NPH and regular. 2 shots a day, yada, whatever. And in I think 2002, switched. I remember being super pissed because I wanted to up my game, and they changed me to Lantus and Novolog or Humalog. And I was like, so I'm going from 2 shots to 4 shots? Like, I remember crying giving my first Lantus shot because I was like, okay, I got to do this. And I'm upset that now I'm whatever. But, so yeah, I fluctuate my Lantus dosage and I get it. And I just today put a post out about unintentionally sleepwalking through my diabetes management because of a couple mishaps, but I give a Lantus shot at 5:41 a.m. every day. My alarm goes off. It says, give your shot. I'm usually up by then anyway, and then I give Novolog as needed.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very specific time, 5:41. Like what? Just out of total curiosity, like what prompted that?
I felt like there were so many times in my life where I had an early meeting or a late breakfast or things like that. I just felt like that was a point in the day that I knew I didn't have to be anywhere. And it would give my body time to let it settle in before I drank my cup of coffee or had my breakfast smoothie.
Okay.
And
I like it.
Yeah.
I just like to know people they already have their own intricacies. And I think that people get caught up in like, well, if I don't do it the same way that X, Y, and Z does it, or the same way, no offense again, but that the doctor says, it's like our guidelines and recommendations that we as people with diabetes need to take, consider, try it out. But if it's not working, it's up to us to adjust our day-to-day insulin needs, because day-to-day things are different. Like one day you might be taking a 10-mile hike. The next day you might be sitting in front of your desk all day and not moving.
Your hormones. I mean, hormones are a huge thing. My fluctuation in Lantus is totally a part of my cycle. And so
100% here too.
You're not learning that. I mean, and maybe they're teaching that now, but neither my endocrinologist or my gynecologist ever talked to me about your hormone fluctuations and how that affects your blood sugar. I mean, it's a no-brainer, but not discussed.
But you think that something that would be a no-brainer would be something that would be covered across the board. That's the same with me. Like, I was on MDI, manual injections, for 21 or 22 out of my 25 years with diabetes. Now I'm on a pump, which I love, and it works for me. But I have a temporary basal program set for 3 days up until my cycle starts, because that's for me. I need it 3 days up, and that's from complete trial and error. Like every month, 3 days up before the cycle starts, I'm like, my blood sugars are so high. Like
in the mornings or just around across
around the clock. Like I like just high. Like I would just be like normally I would sit somewhere between 80, 120, because where I have my CGM line set. And then all of a sudden I'm like 160, 170, 180, but same routine. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, but again, nobody told me that. I have a temporary basal. I'm like, oh, I mark it on the calendar. I'm like, oh, look at that, it's coming up. And then now I better put my and like clockwork, like 99% of the time, that temporary basal takes care of it, because I just need more insulin.
Would you use the Afrezza for that?
I might. I don't know. I haven't had it yet for that. But so Amber and I, what's a good time to talk about that, actually. We both got Afrezza at the conference that we were at.
Hold on. I didn't try it. I was leery.
Okay. Well, I tried it, and a few other people tried it as well.
Yeah.
Because I have a friend, an acquaintance that I know pretty well from the conference circle, that he's been using it for a long time. I'm not going to mention any names here, but I don't want to get anybody in trouble, because you're not
supposed to share medication.
But otherwise, the thing is about getting Afrezza is that it's not easy to get. So for me to have had the samples, have tried it out for a month, then I called my doctor and I said, hey, because she trusts me, she knows that I'm super self-managed. And I said, I've been taking this Afrezza for a month now. And it's improved my athletic performance hugely, because I can now bring my rising blood sugars down quick enough that it doesn't affect my whole workout. And by me having that background information, she was much more willing to say, first of all, she never prescribed it before ever. It's the first time she ever prescribed it. So she was like, well, I know that and I would hate to say, to take away this thing that's improved your life so much, but I want to have some follow-up and this and that, which is fine, but she prescribed it. So I'm patiently waiting for my Afrezza to arrive on my doorstep, and I'm not going to use it as my main insulin. I'm just going to use it to correct fast rising highs. Like, so if I go, it's just,
well, it's like, it's another tool. I mean, just like diet and exercise, which is not preached about, I mean, I want all the tools I can get in my toolbox to live a normal life. So kudos to you for taking the plunge on that. And I mean, I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm going to post about it. I'm sure I'm going to do a vlog on it as I continue to go on. I have about 3 million vlogs on my list of things to do. But yeah, it's a nice tool to have. And like you said, I think that's an important thing too. The tools that we have are only as good as the knowledge that we have on how to use them.
Absolutely.
So even though I have a CGM and an Omnipod insulin pump, in the first month or two of me having those things, again, I was like not seeing a huge improvement, just because I was learning how to use them. Now I know how to use them. I looked up different people's experiences, watched Diabetic Danica, who I just love her videos and things like that. But it's like, nobody says like, this is a tool that you have, and whether you choose to use it or not is up to you. It's a choice. And like that's what you said, which struck me. It's like, I love to have as many tools in my tool belt, but sometimes I'm just going to leave those tools in my tool belt because it's not fitting to the situation that we're in right now, but it's nice to have them as an option. And I think that a lot of people, we get caught up in like, well, this didn't work that 1 or 2 times that I tried it, so it must not be for me. When you just kind of need to keep on
I get it. Yeah.
go. Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to throw this out there because I'm kind of teetering on changing. So I've been on Lantus, like I said, forever. How many? 14 years. And this is not a plug to anybody, but switching to Tresiba.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything?
I have. I've actually heard a ton about Tresiba use and about how it's been extremely helpful to people, particularly a friend and colleague and someone else I've interviewed and actually was in my book, Dr. Stephen Ponder, who does sugar surfing. I saw him at the unconference back in March, and he gave a presentation on sugar surfing, but he also mentioned that he's really enjoying his switch to Tresiba. And I've heard, read a few blogs about different people that have said, especially over Toujeo, which Toujeo is the other long-acting insulin that has recently come on the market. I had experience with it just quickly because I went on a pump break. And when I went on the pump break, my doctor gave me a bunch of samples of Toujeo that she had. Previously, I had been on Lantus, but I thought, hey, I'll just try it.
Yeah.
Okay experience with it. I would have preferred to have just gone back to my Lantus, but I was only on the pump break for like 2 weeks, so I didn't really want to start fussing with worrying about getting all these different medications filled. But at the same time, from what I've read and what I've heard people raving about their experiences with Tresiba. So
I'll definitely be documenting if I'm going to give it a whirl. I mean, I want to update my game a little bit and try other medications that are coming out. And I feel like I'm lucky. I feel we're all lucky that there are other things coming onto the scene that we get more of a choice.
Yes.
It's great. So
it's life-changing. It really is. People don't realize. And it's just, to me, that leads me back to my favorite thing to talk about in general, which is being grateful.
Yeah.
Just in general in life. We have this propensity to we're so caught up with everything going on. It's like information being shot at us, like Facebook and email and this and that and the news. And it's like, we're so disconnected from our inner.
Yeah.
And that, like, being grateful, like, I always talk about diabetes management practices as I use words meaning I don't have to do it, I get to do it.
Yeah. Because
I have to do it if I want to live, but at the bottom line, nobody's holding a gun to my head and being like, take your insulin. Nobody's doing that. So I don't actually have to. I get to. We all get to. And just that little switch of words has changed my life. I'm grateful for every bolus I get to take. I'm grateful for every low blood sugar I get to bring up because I get to. Like, these are options that I have, and they're options, and they're choices. We all have these choices, but everybody's like, oh, I'm forced to do this. I'm forced to. No, you're not. Nobody's forced
you don't have to do it. I mean, you can suffer the consequences.
Which I did for many years.
And one of the things on that I have to say, just because I feel like we have the same mindset when it comes to that stuff. When I give my Lantus shot every morning at 5:41, I have an affirmation that says, I say, thank you, Lantus, for going into my body and helping me live a wonderful life. And on my bottles of insulin, it says, thank you. I mean, if it weren't for that insulin, I wouldn't be alive today. So instead of being pissed at or angry about this situation, I'm just happy that it's available to me. Period. Yeah. So
I could not love what you just said anymore. I think that just when it comes to, for me, from being, over 200 pounds, completely out of control with the eating, binge eating, and just the mindset that I had around my diabetes management practices then and what it is now, obviously the way I was eating and the way I was exercising has played a role in the way that I was living, but the biggest role, the biggest game changer was my mindset around what, it was anger, it was bitterness, it was self-pity, it was why me, it was all just why are bad things happening to me, blah blah blah, all of this negative self-talk. And never was I like, oh, I'm so grateful that I get to have this insulin. Like, that thought process, like, it wasn't even something for me to scoff at, because it wouldn't even be something that was in my head, like, that I would even, and I didn't back then. I mean, I didn't even have the internet till I was like 16 or 17. And that was like when I was starting to begin coming out of that, just beginning on my own. But yeah, if somebody would have even suggested that thought process to me, I probably would have scoffed at it just because of the mindset that I was in. But at least it would have been a little like, it would have been in my head, like in the back. And I could have probably gone back and been like, well, maybe I should think about that a little more. But yeah, I love your mindset. I'm glad that we met and we clicked so quickly over pool pooping. So yeah. Yeah.
Time at the pool.
Yeah, exactly. Me and Amber were at the pool at Disney, and the adult pool, mind you, no kids allowed, and somebody went number 2 in the pool and we had to leave. So we were instantly friends after that, because you don't go through that kind of trauma without bonding.
I have to say that yesterday I was working out in the pool with a friend, and I happened to can you hear that okay? Okay, that's better. Okay, so I was laughing. We were in the pool, and I was like, because I was thinking I was posting just to the people in Masterlab, and actually put it on my regular Facebook page, and was like, hey, plans have changed. Somebody pooped in the pool. And all my friends were like, where the hell are you? What's going on? Like, what kind of conference are you at?
Yeah, right. I didn't know diabetes was doing all that stuff. Oh, and now my pump is beeping because it wants to give me insulin.
Are you going down?
No, it's just I suspended my insulin because I was a little low before we started, but now it wants to start going back, which I guess
is real life right here. And I want to chime in on one thing that you just said a second ago about the anger and the things like that. Like, I didn't even know I was angry until I started talking to other people, and I was like, son of a gun. You know, this is why I felt this way. And I mean, I lived angry all the time. And so, I mean, I can't tell you how thankful I am for the DOC, because again, you can chime in at any point on social media or reach out to somebody, and when they say I'm trying something new, and it just makes you feel you just get it.
Yeah.
You need that community. And so that's what I preach to young people. And when parents send us messages like, hey, I'm listening to your podcast and I have 2 children with type 1. Thank you for saying blah, you know, because now we know how to handle them. And so, yeah, thank you, DOC.
Absolutely. I am super
therapy.
Yeah. And that's why I'm such a big promoter of the diabetes online community, just because it's changed my life. It's changed my perspective. But what you said about living angry, I don't know. The same thing. It's like we have these default settings in our mind about just the way we feel. And oftentimes we don't even think about it, just because that's our pattern. That's the way we are. And until you are able to take a step back and say, why is that my default pattern? How has that become my default pattern?
Yeah.
And then you realize that default pattern is not only is it not serving you in any positive way, it's holding you back from growth in all areas of your life. That's when things really, the mindset shifts begin to happen, because you finally identify, you're like, why am I so angry all the time? And I was the same way. It was a combination of anger and bitterness and self-pity and also self-loathing, just because I hated myself. I hated how obese I was and how I couldn't stop binge eating. And it was a whole slew of negative emotions that were shaping my reality. But the reality of it is that the only person that could change those emotions was me.
Well, with the binge eating, do you think that, and I mean, was that your mechanism for coping with the hate?
Oh, it was my mechanism for just comforting. So yeah, I mean, it was a combination of, and for me, it was the diabetes, but it was also the fact that my father passed away the day after my 12th birthday. And then I had diabetes for a few years at that point, but that was just like, I was just angry and bitter about that too. Because it was like, oh, I had this great loving family that it was just me, my mom and my dad. And now all of a sudden, like, my dad's gone. And it was like so fast. It was like a week, like 1 week he was just totally fine. And the next week he was dead. So it was like, that was part of the anger, and the coping was definitely the food. Like, I could always go under my bed where I hid all the food and find that comfort, because I knew it was going to be there for me because I put it there. So yes, it was a huge part of the coping, of the anger, of everything. And that's why I also realized it wasn't diabetes that was killing me. It was the choices I was making around the way I cared for myself that were making me, you know, have A1Cs of 13% and, you know, all that stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of digging deep in self-realization, but these are all things that every human being alive has the capacity to explore, which is a beautiful thing. So yeah. So I want to ask you, as I always ask people, because I need to compile like a list at some point, just because I have like 60 amazing people who are thriving. And when I say thriving, I just mean living the life that you want, like doing whatever you want, being happy and healthy. You have diabetes, but it's not the reason why you don't do whatever it is in life that you want. And I've asked 60 plus people what their top 3 tips for thriving with diabetes are. And I'm sure I have like a gold mine. I would probably write a little book.
You need to write a book. Yeah.
I
need a little
pamphlet. Book. Yeah, right. A pamphlet.
A small book that you can just keep in your purse. And when you're pissed, you're like, oh, let me look at this.
That's actually a pretty good idea. But so I need to get an assistant to go through all of the videos, pull out that information. But no, so what are your top 3 tips for Amber for thriving with diabetes for you?
Oh, for me, would be life-work balance. So I really worked hard in the past couple of months of giving myself the freedom to go to dinner with friends, or I know that sounds so juvenile maybe, but because I work, or, and the,
like so, Rihanna? Sorry.
So it's nice. I love the cat in the background. I just got to say that cat looks really cute.
Oh yeah, there she's cleaning herself. That's my crew. That's my camera crew. That's all right there. And look how hard she's working.
And then, okay, so that would be tip number 1, finding the work-life balance. And 2 would be, for me, my, I am very particular about what I eat. And it's okay. I would say it's okay to say to someone, I can't eat that, or I choose not to eat that. I don't say can't. I choose.
Yeah. Exactly. I choose not to eat that, because that's the thing about diabetes, and the stigma is like, oh, well, you can't eat that because you have diabetes. Like, no, I can eat anything.
I can eat anything I want.
But I choose to eat this because I want to respect my body. And also, I also don't want to deal with the blood sugar fallout that's going to happen, even if I do bolus for the right amount of carbs in this donut.
Right.
In a few hours, I'm going to be high. So.
And Ryan, like I said, the chosen dietary things Ryan and I talk about often. Like, I don't eat beef or pork and haven't since I was 14. I don't eat many processed things. And so, so for me, that's a big part. And then I think the third tip you can do anything. I don't care if it's jumping out of a plane. I was told so many times in my life, down to, which was good, I couldn't get a tattoo at age 16. It was a hammerhead shark, and thank God they didn't let me. But it was because I had diabetes. And that only came up because I said, oh, is this going to hurt as bad as, is it going to hurt like a shot, or what are we thinking? And he was like, why are you shooting up? And I was like, oh, I've got diabetes. Duh. That was it. And I was out of his chair. So do whatever you want. People are going to tell you can't. Be respectful of your body and your mind, and don't be stupid, but you can do anything.
I like it. I agree. So before we wrap up, is there any, big projects or anything that we should be on the lookout for Diabetes Daily Grind? Because as usual, I will be linking to all of Amber's, accounts, so you can find more out about her and Diabetes Daily Grind. But is there anything else you want to say or promote, or anything we should keep an eye out for, or anything like that?
I think for us, the only thing I want to pitch, and I don't know if it's a pitch or necessarily, but we want to share other people's stories. Ryan and I have shared a lot about our lives, but we know that you're living the real life too. So if you want to be a guest contributor, shoot us an email at info@diabetesdailygrind.com. We're always looking to interview people as well on our Real Life Diabetes podcast. And so we've got some exciting people, like I said, down the pipeline, but we want to not just have famous people. We want to have the real people, the real life, the parents, the spouses. So if you're interested in being a guest, like I said, just shoot us an email and we'll see what we can do.
I love it. Yep, that's the same thing that I do. And we need more people like us writing stories, because there's so many important stories. Every one of us has a story that will inspire someone. Like, it doesn't matter if it's just one person, but like one of the best interviews I ever did. And it's probably like one of the least viewed, just because the person, like, not a famous person, but it was a mom and a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old was the type 1. And she just sat there like real quiet, but she had made this little, like one of those flip videos where she was just like, hi, I'm Peyton. I have type 1 diabetes. And sometimes, like, when I do my shots, it hurts, but I'm really brave. And it was like, it went viral. Like, and then I contacted them. I'm like, we need to. And Anna, who was her mom, like she was just so like her insights were just so fantastic. And just to see Peyton just sitting there like the whole time, like, because she was on camera, so she did, but that kind of thing, that's the kind of interview, like, yeah, it's great to get someone famous on as well, just because that's inspirational, but the real
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Have you heard of the diabetes dads or daddies? Diabetes daddies, I think.
Carla? Diabetes
dads? I don't know. I'm sorry, and no disrespect to them, but they, I'm totally digging them right now. And just on that note, you should check them out because they put up a couple of pictures recently that Jesus criminy Christ is that I've always given my own shots. I can't imagine having to be a parent and give a shot. One of the things was he was giving an insulin shot in his daughter's bottom and she was hugging him. And he was like, sometimes it takes a hug to this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Anywho, future interview for you for sure. You should check them out.
I'm already feeling like all mushy.
I cried. I was like, come on.
Oh my goodness.
So,
all right, cool. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, and also Kitty can't thank you enough. And she's come closer. So thank you for joining us today. But yeah, so thank you so much for your time. It's always fun to talk to you, and there'll be many more times we talk in the future. But for everybody else out there, thank you so much for tuning in to Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. If you liked our fun and crazy talk interview here, give us a thumbs up, and always subscribe because I'll be putting out more great interviews as the weeks go on. And Amber, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And we will catch you on the next episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Take it easy, guys.